What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Market Misfits podcast. My name is Joe Shiva, and I will be your primary host of this podcast. I am a member of the Steamroom Trading group, which is a trading community that was founded almost 10 years ago by none other than Wall Street Jesus and Sanglucci. You may see our CEO, Charlie Bathgate, from time to time be a host or co-host with me on this thing. And for those that have never heard of us before or don't know who Wall Street Jesus or Sanglucci is, we own a platform for retail traders where we focus heavily on the community aspect and human interaction. Our members swap ideas, strategy, and have meaningful, no bullshit market conversations every day. And we provide a lot of tools like options flow, gamma, and we have educational courses to really take your trading to the next level. Our members trade directly alongside our educators who are Wall Street Jesus, Sanglucci, and Ranchero. So honestly, if you're an equities trader, options or futures trader, then we have a place for you. And we want to help you on your trading journey and continue to get better, right? That's the whole point of everything that we do inside of that room is just getting better day by day at, this thing that we love, which is trading the markets. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way and you have a better sense of who we are, if you didn't know us already, the initial goal for this podcast is just to have a home for, our raw and unfiltered, market conversations and trading conversations, and to really just have a place where we can kind of do whatever we want. Sometimes it'll be an interview with one of our members or an educator. Other times it might just be the guys on here, talking shop and shooting the shit with a beer in hand. The best part of this is we could kind of do whatever we want. And for those that have been in the room, you guys know that we really don't take ourselves too seriously. We're just trying to get better every day at, like I said earlier, the thing that we love, which is trading. So as we were kind of sitting there deciding who we wanted to use to launch this bad boy, the decision was really easy. It was a person that I have basically listened to for the better part of 8 years, someone that helped me, basically taught me how to trade options alongside Sanglucci. Someone that really doesn't pump his chest or give himself enough credit to all of the good that he's done, not only for the room, but for the industry as a whole. And a person that I have, immense respect for. So without further ado, I bring you the voice of the steam room, the man, the myth, the legend, Wall Street Jesus. Jay, how the hell are you, brother?
Good. I appreciate you making me blush over here. Thank you for a kind word.
Absolutely, Jay. Absolutely. I have tremendous respect for you, and I really appreciate you taking the time, to kind of sit down and do this because, as Charlie and I were thinking about moving our content into this, podcast format, I told him, I was like, well, if we are going to do it, and we're going to do it the right way. I'm like, the first person has to be Jay. Has to be Jay, right? I love Ranchero and I love Lucci, but I know them way better than I know you. And I've probably known you like indirectly through the room, the longest. So it'll be really cool for me to kind of hear your story. And I know I'm probably not the only one that hasn't had the opportunity to hear, how you got into this game and like how the steam room became to be. And I mean, honestly, how you became Wall Street Jesus. So, thank you for, sitting down and I'm really looking forward to this because unless I'm wrong, I don't think you've ever done this before.
I'm trying to think. I think we've done it I've never done just an interview. We've done like bits and pieces. You know what I mean? Like parts of interviews within webinars, but I can't remember sitting down and doing any interview since I started this. So this would be the first legit interview.
What I want to do is just, kick right into it. What I want to know is the story. Like, you've been in this game for a long time. I know that. I think people that have been in our steam room know how long you've been in this game. But I don't think anyone's actually figured out, like, all right, well, how the heck did you start? Like, where did this come from? So if we could take this back, I'm not saying let's go from the day that, you're born and you're like, yeah, I played T-ball, right? And, growing up, I'm assuming in the Bronx, but, a little background of like, kind of who you are, where you kind of came from. And then, how did you become Wall Street Jesus? Like, take us through that journey, from the beginning.
Yeah, well, the market, it's a weird thing because, and it's funny you mentioned don't go too far back, but a lot of, I think the reason why I'm in this game and been in the game for a long time is kind of my upbringing, childhood, again, so all the way through high school and college years. You mentioned the Bronx. I'm actually from Brooklyn. So I'm from Brooklyn.
So I was close. It started with the B. It
Yeah,
was in
yeah,
the New
yeah.
York area. I was close.
Same shithole. But the so I grew up in Brooklyn, and I mean, as I got older, I bounced all over the place. Lived out in Jersey for a little bit, then moved out to the island. I just couldn't, live in Brooklyn, raise a family in Brooklyn. It's getting too congested. But anyway, um, I legitimately got into the game. I started off as a broker. So I got Series 7 licensed. I got into the game, I think it was 97. And then I got licensed
Post college, like you went to college for
yeah.
finance. Like, is that how this whole thing started?
No, I went to college actually for communications, believe it or
Okay.
not, was my major. And I was doing a lot of like broadcasting stuff. I was I was a big sports fan growing up, both on the gambling side and enjoying, just an athlete growing up and following sports. So that's the only passion I really had. Like I really never figured out what I was going to do for a living because I wanted to do something I was passionate about. So it was something, it had to be something related to sports, and broadcasting was one of the avenues to go chase that route. You know what I mean? So communications is pretty much what I mastered what I took in college. But how I got into this game was a little weird because I was kind of, I wouldn't say depressed, but kind of, a little blue, trying to figure out again what I wanted to do in life. I really haven't come to any conclusion of what I wanted to do. And a buddy of mine kind of literally forced me to go on an interview to a brokerage firm at the time. Okay. And I didn't want to do it. It was something like I told him no multiple times, but it was a pain in the ass. I'm thankful he was at the end of it. But that's how I was introduced to the brokerage business. That's how I became a broker. So, I mean, we could go back and talk about, because I talk about this a lot, the relation, I think, sports and gambling. And, that is the reason why I really developed an interest to the market, right? It was like a casino. It was like gambling to me.
It's funny you say that too, because where you grow up, like you grew up in all of this, and like you're into sports, like me, obviously, big sports guy myself, especially into the gambling. Like, it's
Right.
funny enough. Norris always gives me a hard time. He's like, "Don't you do enough gambling during the day in the markets?" I'm like, Norris, I have money on the line every single day in some capacity, whether it's through
Yeah, yeah.
sports
You can
bets
never
or
have enough
anything else. But it's funny because where you kind of grew up and stuff. Like, I instantly just when you were talking, I'm like, "Huh, man, can you imagine communications, love sports and gambling?" I'm like, this guy should be on camera for Barstool Sports right now. Like, why the hell is he trading stock?
That's funny. But yeah, that's so. And again, I don't know if I'm jumping around too much for you, but stop me if I am. Like, as a kid, you get an idea of kind of um how, my background as a kid in my childhood. My father, many people I think in the steam room and on the web, we've talked about it, kind of understand, they've been introduced to this before. I've mentioned it, but my father was a big time gambler. He passed away now, but I'm talking about a degenerate gambler. Loved to gamble 24/7, never got enough of it. And as a kid, you know, obviously my mother wasn't too happy about it, but as a kid, he would bring me around to the racetracks, the casinos, to just other people he was around that gambled with him. And, I had a good understanding of the gambling world. Like, even as a young kid, I knew the difference between a degenerate gambler and like gamblers who gambled for a living. That's the first time I really, was introduced or saw anybody who, oh shit, people actually make a living? You telling me this guy doesn't work a day in his life? This is what he does, right? So that kind of, especially as a kid, if you're into this stuff, that's your Michael Jordan, right? That's your idol in a sense. There's nothing better than that, right? Gambling for a living, and you could actually make money. So I learned, like, I was introduced and learned that early on, right? The disciplines of it. Again, not easy to master, but I knew about it. I was aware about it. And, just to fast forward, being around all that and seeing between the difference between my father as a real degenerate gambler just for the action and some of his friends who would go to the racetrack, bet one race the whole entire day because they had an edge in that race. You know what I mean? It was like night and day between like gamblers like my father and these guys. So it was almost by mistake when I got, when I was introduced to the market and I saw the similarities there. That's when I really started to build a passion for the business.
So walk me through that though. So right, it's like, you're growing up, right? You've been around gambling. I mean, let's be honest, the stock market is gambling. This is what this is, right? It's just you have an edge or a system or whatever it is, similar to how you mentioned the professional handicappers. But you're fighting someone to go to, this broker interview, right? And you're like, no, I don't want to go. But then you eventually go. And then, I mean, if we're fast forwarding, look at what's happened, right? So you're thankful obviously you went, but what happens? So you go into this interview, you don't want to be there, and like walk me through that.
So I go on his interview, and again, he explained to me a little bit about like what the job entailed. And basically he was telling me like, we're going to be co-callers. I think it was like $200 a week. Right. So that's how you're going to start. Then, you work your way to get your license. You got to study for the test. And I was like, bro, that's the last thing I want to do right now. You know what I mean? I'm going to work for $200 a week. What the fuck am I going to do with that? First of all, and second of all, I can't like study for a Series 7. I heard that, it's not so easy of a test. Like you had to really study for it. It was just the last thing I wanted to do. But I ended up going just to shut him up and appease him. And I said, you know what, I'll go if I don't like it. I just, if he wants to go and get hired, let him go get hired. So, but as soon as I walked in, right, and you got to understand, like, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but back then, the brokerage business, and you've seen it in movies, like some of the movies out there, like it was a legitimate chop shop, okay? Legitimate chop shop. I didn't know it at the time, but this is a place that they brought their own companies public. They had, $5 rips in the stock. They would driving Lamborghinis, Ferrari, Porsches, living the Mac Daddy life. And a lot of that was around back then. So make a long story short, I go in there, and as soon as I stepped foot in that place, I fell in love. Like it was almost like walking into a stadium. You could hear the roar, right? Everybody on the phone, everybody excited, papers and tickets flying all over the place.
I'm literally just thinking of you right now, Jay, walking into this brokerage firm, and you just, you're looking over there, and you see Matthew McConaughey, from Wolf of Wall Street, just pounding his chest, just straight up Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street vibes, exactly. and your face just lighting up like a kid on Christmas saying, damn, like, this is my paradise. I love this.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's so crazy how things work out in life, because the majority of people I know who got into that business around that time, earlier than I did, all got in trouble because the majority of what they did was illegal. Yeah, that's why they were driving Ferraris a year into the business, So I was fortunate enough that when I got into the game, me and my buddy, okay, we were co-callers. Like we didn't have the chance to do anything criminal yet. We weren't managing client money. You know what I mean?
Man,
we were working for the criminal.
You didn't have the chance to do illegal shit, Jay. Like 100%. that could have been real bad
at the time. Like, call me naive, but I didn't know how illegal or legal it was. I was so wrapped up into the excitement of looking at all these cars and the lifestyle they're living. But what me and my buddy were doing, like all the other co-callers, we were working for $200 a week. Okay, so it's basically working for free, standing up all day, pounding the phones, right? So making hundreds of dials, getting hung up on by secretaries all day long, just to get qualified leads for the guy who, the account opener who would open accounts and then get to eventually the money manager. So we were the lowest on the totem pole, basically. You know what I mean? And that's what that job consisted of. But I stuck with it. Again, I stuck with it just because I really wanted to get to that point where I wanted to play the game. I wanted to be that guy that I was working for, trading the market, having guys underneath me work for me, bring me the money that I can trade with, that sort of thing. So I put my head down and I really want to get to that point, to reach that point. So again, passed the test, did what I had to do, opened accounts for the guy I was working with. Then firms were closing left and right because of all the trouble they were getting into. So now, each and every firm, literally, there were firms closing by the day. You would hear another firm close because they were getting in trouble. I finally found a home. Now I'm licensed now, and I finally found a home at a clean house that I could start building a business in. And the beauty of that is I'm not buying these bullshit companies now, right? So I'm buying Compaq Computer, Apple, Sun Microsystems, Dell. I'm buying legitimate stocks. So I'm saying to myself, wow, did I catch a break? Instead of building a business in this e-liquid crap that, I would have made money, but I'd probably be out of the business right now. I have an opportunity now to just buy these legit names and trade them, you know what I mean? Almost like a form of gambling. And the way I would make money is if I made my clients money. And so I got into that, and that's what kept me in the game. I never, believe it or not, and people find it crazy, from the time I got into the game to, when I left it, I never touched any chop stock throughout. Never bought a share of chop stock, all by luck, all by luck. So
when you say chop stock, Jay, what does that mean for those that don't understand that particular terminology?
Chop stock. So in simple terms, like what they used to do, the Belfors, and Belfor was even bigger than that. He used to actually bring these companies public. But what they used to do is you come in, right, and they'd be like, all right, guys, talking to the boardroom, XYZ is on the board today. It'd be a $3 stock, $1.50 ripping it. So for every share of XYZ you sold at $3, $1.50 goes in your pocket. Okay? So, right? So if you had $1 rip, like 100,000 shares for a client, and that was peanuts back then for a guy, you made $100,000 on that. Just like that. Not do it, right? So that's why they had what they had. You know what I mean? That's why they had the money they had. So instead of doing that, what I did is kind of what all of us are doing now. I would pitch to clients, buy Compaq Computer, buy Apple, and give them a sexy story on a legitimate company, and then trade it, right? Exactly what we're doing now. So that's what I did for quite a while. And I was definitely successful doing it. I made a lot of money doing it. But it got to the point, it was around, what was it? I think it was around, let me think. What, 9/11?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, how long were you there, Jay? Right? You're at multiple places, or were you only at one?
No, it wasn't at one place. I was at, initially the first place I went to, I was there for a couple of years. Then I would go to another place. They would give me like a signing bonus because I had a decent sized book. Yeah, so I get paid to stay there a year. So I definitely bounced around. But I think it was, I can't even remember now, but I think it was a little after 9/11 when I finally pulled the plug. And what happened was the game just got too difficult at the time. Raising money, getting clients, all the paperwork. There was so much paperwork now because of 9/11. You had to worry about a guy being a terrorist and moving funds in. And it was just, forget it. If you wanted to buy calls, I laugh now. Like right now, Robinhood, you press a button and you long calls.
Right.
If I wanted to buy calls for a client back then, you know what I had to do? Forget it. My compliance officer would be in my ear all day long if I wanted to buy calls. Just a whole different game. So it just got too difficult. It got too difficult too far. I found myself not enjoying it anymore. I love the market.
Yeah, lost that
part of it.
That spark that really got you into it, right? It's gone now.
The sales part of it, I just didn't enjoy anymore. So I left that, and then I just happened to, Twitter came out. I started talking shop on Twitter, market, just market on Twitter on the daily, and Lucci. I bumped into Lucci. Like Lucci found me, and then that's it. That's where I am today.
All right, and that would be the end of the podcast then. Jay joins saying Lucci, the steam room is a thing, and the rest is history. No, I'm just kidding. So you end the brokerage stuff, Jay, right? Like you're done. Like when were you done? Like, how long did it take?
When I was done with it, I mean, it was, I wasn't done with it one day and I just left. It was a process. That's what I was trying to think of. I'm trying to think around the time. Um, it was
Well, how did Twitter
probably,
come out? '06 or something, right?
yeah. I think I hopped on Twitter 2010. I think is when I started a Twitter account.
Yeah. So Twitter was
And
started in '06, but it probably didn't catch any buzz for a little while. So yeah, that makes
yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah. And I remember that I was still in the business while, I knew about Twitter while I was towards the end of being in the business. But that's right around, ballpark, right around that time that I started to slowly back out of that part of the game, the brokerage part of the
Right.
game.
And then that, like, during that time too, right? So, what was kind of like, what was the shift? I mean, if you think about it, right? Like, you're a broker, you're leaving the business, right? You're saying, okay, I'm slowly getting out of this. In your own head, like, you got to provide, right? Like, you want to make money, you want to do things. So what was the plan at that point? You're like, hey, I'm gonna go trade my
Well,
own, I'm becoming a retail guy, or you're like,
I
fuck it,
mean,
I'm YOLO and buying the Yankees to win the World Series every year until I break my nut.
that definitely was a thought. But no, I made a good amount of money. Like, especially, how about this? I remember, let me think, 2000. So the Nasdaq bubble blew up in 2000. Okay, and that actually 2001 through 2003 were the best years that I had in the game. Believe it or not. Okay, just because of market performance, solely market performance. The Nasdaq bubble blew up, and believe it or not, I didn't short a thing. It had nothing to do with shorting. But
So you're telling me right now, Jay, that you didn't make a single dollar from shorting one of the biggest busts in stock market history?
I swear, not one. I didn't short one share. But what I did was, at that time, um, I didn't have any exposure to any of those big tech names when that crash happened. So I was in a pile of cash, thinking that I was going to wait out like a correction that was ongoing, or whatever the case, right? And there, luckily, being in cash, I was able to have my eyes open. There was the birth of both full fledged bull market. Okay, like, I can't even explain to you, in small caps. Okay, so while the Nasdaq bubble and every single name that everybody and their mother owned was falling to shit in a hell in the handbasket on the daily, okay, there was a as strong as a bull market under the hood in small and micro cap names like I've never seen before.
So
Okay.
just everybody's like, I'm out of this shit. We're going into small caps, just like
Yeah.
a mass
Well,
rotation.
the majority of people were buried in these large caps and holding them, hoping they would come back like they did every other time they pulled back. So they weren't even paying attention to see that bull market. It was like a very little few of us that were able to pay attention because we were in cash and we didn't have any pain on the books. So I mean, at that time, that's the two best years I had. Literally $2, $3 stocks going to 12, 15 in a month or two. And it was insane. So, by the way, that's kind of like where the Wall Street Jesus line came out of, right? Because, like, I had friends that would bust my chops because, while, like, they would say, "Look at this guy! Everybody's getting killed in tech
He's
stocks."
making money. He's the
Yeah.
guru. He's the
So,
god of the markets.
yeah, so the Brooklyn, why this is that Brooklyn friends of mine would, bust my chops about that. Just, saying that while everybody was blowing up in tech, I was over here, making a lot of money. My best years, again, were in that time. So again, that, I had some cushion. And after seeing that, as difficult as the brokerage game became, I was like, you know what? I can trade my own account too. You know what I mean? Now I could go worry about myself. I don't have to call up clients. I don't have to worry about, and so that was always the thought in my head as I was little by little getting out of that business. And that was my goal, kind of to trade my own account and make money that way. While I had, a decent nest egg in the bank to survive for a few years.
Right. So you're done with all this. That's you touched on this a little bit. You're like, you move out of it, but then the name, right? The name. It's funny. It's like, when someone, you have a lot of people that have been on Twitter for, a good amount of time, and a lot of the good names were snapped up, obviously, like someone like you, but to have I'll say this, like being super honest with you, to have the balls to call yourself the Wall Street Jesus is nuts. Like I don't think someone, you had to be coming from fucking New York, in my opinion, or something like that, to have the balls to do that, right? Like you said, you're the god, you're the guru. Like, but it's funny because the name really has stuck to you, right? Like I call you Jay. I have called you Jay for forever.
And to tell you the truth, it wasn't even like it's easy. Like I'm thinking in my head, like you guys would know, like friends of mine in the crew I hung out with. It wasn't even like implying like a guru, right? Yeah, you got to understand.
Busting your balls, right?
Yeah, they were busting my chops, and it stuck because I was like, and to this day, again, people in the steam room know I'm a very superstitious guy in this game. You know what I mean?
I didn't know that, Jay. I didn't know that.
I mean, there's no one more superstitious. I don't like when the crowd knows what I own. I don't like to go out of my way, tell people that I'm buying something because I know in my gut that's gonna, go south. So that Wall Street Jesus line came out of everything I would say was like, oh, how are you doing? Well, it was like the market gods, right? You got to appease the market gods. The market gods like humility. You got to be humble, So, and like Sil and guys in the room, we always crack jokes about it. Always thank the market gods when you make some money. Don't take any of the
It's funny you say that, Jay, because that's the first person I thought of. The minute you said thank you, market gods, I'm like, yeah, that's Silver's right there.
Yeah. So it kind of, that's where it stuck, that, I was a superstitious guy, and, my friends busting my chops saying, oh, look at this guy. Everybody's losing money, but this guy following the market gods over there is making money in the worst of times. So that's how it kind of came around and stuck that name. And then, on Twitter, I don't know. It just, again, it wasn't taken, and it was something, that stuck with me, and it was available, and I took it on Twitter, and it's stuck ever since. It's stuck ever since.
So yeah, what I think is actually kind of cool is the fact that you are anonymous. At the end of the day, right? Like some people want all the fame and the glory, and some people are out there just to kind of share ideas and different things, to kind of help one another across the board. And I think that's kind of the approach that you kind of took, and I just kind of took off from there. But what actually made you want to do that, right? Like you're done trading, you're done with the brokerage, you are moving into the retail trading space. You could just ride off to the sunset and not share information or talk to anybody, right? You could just do your own thing. So what made you kind of want to, I guess, start tweeting on Twitter?
Yeah, and there was no real incentive. Like I didn't go on Twitter thinking, oh, I can build a business at it. You got to understand too, and I'm tech illiterate. Like I don't see the future of tech early on, So I didn't go on Twitter thinking, oh, this is going to be huge. I can build a business now through this. And I went on Twitter that, oh, look at this. There are other people who do, enjoy what I enjoy. And, I built like I can't even say the word, camaraderie with a few people on there that, just every day we would share ideas, throw charts around, throw interesting things around, talk about what we see during the day. And, a lot of, early on, I really didn't even talk about flow specifically as much. I would just the market in general. And then as I got more involved, it became more and more about flow and sentiment and stuff like that. But it was more just talking with other people about the same shit we do every day. It wasn't trying to build a business or anything like that. And
just building a community. You mean at that point, you're just, like you said, you're just having conversations with like-minded people that want to learn. You guys want to share ideas. And back then too, like you kind of mentioned it, but I was kind of going to poke at it a little bit. You were trading what? Mostly equities and stuff like that. You weren't really dabbling in options, or was options always the thing that you're in?
And a lot of people don't know this about, well, steam room guys do, but not many people out there on Twitter and all. But I'm not a big options guy. I play options, but equities has been my game throughout. Even like for clients, like I told you, it wasn't easy buying options for clients. You know what I mean? And if I wanted to buy it for myself while running a book, you could never buy options for yourself while you had clients in equity. You have to worry about everything. So I traded equity, and I felt comfortable ever since. I traded equity my whole career. I've looked, options. The reason why options flow was the drawer for me was that in real time, you had access to that information that you couldn't find on the equity side. You know what I mean? I couldn't find any aggressive buyer in equity, like any block. You don't know if it's bought or sold in equity, right?
Right.
Yeah, for me, the options market and the flow of the options market was almost like insider activity in real time, And I think I even, me being able to trade the equity side, I think gave me even more of an edge on the scalp end and stuff like that. I didn't have to be in the options. I didn't have to deal with the spreads. I could be quicker in a sense trading the equity. So that's like how the two tie together. But I buy calls more for swing trade purposes, but I'm an equities player. I've been my whole career.
Right. So that's what's interesting. I actually, I didn't know any of this, this is all new information for me, which is actually really cool. Because it's like, I kind of associate you with options flow, right? Like you're options Jesus, you're Mark Wall Street Jesus. Like, Jay is the guy for options. We have a curated board, based off of what you find interesting. But the way that you use it isn't necessarily to go and buy those lines and deal with all of the gamma and the vega and the theta and all those different options gigs. For you, it's like, this just gives me an idea if I can get into the trade itself with an equity, right? And you're using that whole thing. So if you go back to that portion when you start getting on this, like, now everyone talks about flow, but back then, were you kind of like one of the first people to, at least on Twitter, we'll say, to like really look at this and say, hey, like there's
on Twitter. Well, you had a few guys that were out there that were pretty much like the most well known. You had Nigerian, which you guys know, the Nigerian brothers, Options Hawk, who's still on Twitter. Yeah. He
I know. That's
Joe, I forget his last name. Yeah. But he was out there. So you had a few guys, but nowhere near now. And I don't know exactly what they do specifically, but I know like even the Nigerians were more for quote unquote unusual activity. So they would be looking for kind of the stuff that was trading unusual per se, right? In kind of what I look for and look at is, was different, right? Because again, I was looking more for an edge via the equity side of the game than the options side of the game, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted to pick up kind of on like institutional positioning in the options world, so I could take advantage of it via equity. So it was a different, I'm not gonna say completely different, but it was a little different than what they were looking for. But that UOA, as it was labeled, unusual options activity, that was the big thing back then. That's what anybody who followed flow, that's primarily what they would look at, set up scanners and stuff like that. And I dabbled, don't get me wrong, I dabbled in it, but I could never find I never found consistency just trading off unusual options activity. You know what I mean? It was always a piece of everything else I was doing. I had to fine tune it even more from then before I could find success. But yeah, I was definitely not the first on Twitter. But one of the earlier ones, I guess you could throw out there, Yeah,
that's good perspective, Jay, because, people, at least like I did, like I associated you just as the options guy. It's interesting to hear kind of how you, use, options in the way that you particularly trade with equities. And, it's even funnier to see how options flow has exploded.
Yeah, it's
right? Now like it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, it's stupid now. It's dumb now. Now it's just, it's dumb where people think they could just, leave some scanner running and it can spit out ideas. And you see all over social media, people selling these scanners, trying, nitpicking little the couple of winners that are in there, never talking about any of the ones that you would lose your ass on. But that's what sells. That's what sells. But options, I would have I didn't never thought options were going to get as big as they are right now. Because back then you can understand, like, it was the riskiest thing you could do in the market when I got into the game.
Yeah, so explain that to me, Jay, right? Explain that. Like, I've been in this game, well, I shouldn't say I've been in the game long, but I've first got my exposure to options when I met the, Sang Lucci Wall Street Jesus team back in 2016 when I was at eOption. And I've watched it over the last 10 years, expand or explode across the board. Zero DTEs weren't a thing back then. Fees were obscene. So I'm really curious, like, what it was like back in the day for you in comparison to now.
Yeah, and like, well, let me put it this way, right? So, like, even when I was dealing with clientele and all, like, for me to buy options was impossible. Like, I had to get approval from my compliance officer. My compliance officer would try to talk me out of it. If my client wanted to do it, he had to fill out this form and signing letters saying it was an unsolicited order. I had nothing to do with it, because the problem is that you had to be an accredited investor. You had to have a certain amount of years of experience, because you could lose all your money. You know what I mean? In a single day, you come in, the market opens, that position could go to zero. Boom, just like that.
And how liquid was it even back then, though?
Yeah, now, no, obviously nowhere near what it is now. And you had, the indexes were the most liquid. Some of the larger names had liquidity, but nowhere even close to where it is now. Now I think it's almost like the equity game is becoming a dinosaur now. You know what I mean? It's all about options. No one, a lot of the professional money, who wants to deal with the equity market anymore, because you can manage your risk a lot more effectively now with all the things they got out there with options. But, for like the thought of that, Robinhood would have an account where you could just buy calls and buy puts whenever you wanted, like, and you could be some teenager that works in 7-Eleven part-time to do it. If you would have told me that, I would have laughed in your face back then. So, and that's one of the reasons. So it was drilled in my head early on that, options were straight up, because it was considered straight up gambling. You understand? It was straight up gambling. The majority of us back then who traded options would have an equity position, and we'd sprinkle in a little bit of call exposure, just for the excitement. But, we'd have a core equity position, unlike now. So, I think that has a lot to do with, like, how I'm still comfortable with equities, because I'm so used to it from how I was brought into the game, So, and
Right.
and a lot of the younger guys now don't have a grasp on the risk. You see it all day long on social media, right? Where people's positions go to zero and they have no idea what happened. A stock doesn't really go down, but they lose money time value. They're scratching their heads, wondering why, right?
Yeah, don't understand IV
Time
and how
decay and all
works.
that. So, you could see how back then it was considered extremely, extremely risky. It was, the only thing more riskier than options back then were like bulletin board stocks, penny stocks, 20 cents, 30 cents, shit like that. Because that's what an option is.
Aerotine Industries, Jay. At least I think that's the name that was in Wolf of Wall Street. That was the Jordan Belfort bulletin board special imminent patent approval as their sign is falling off of their garage. Their mom's garage that they're building out
he
of.
brought Steve Madden. He brought Steve Madden public, right? Yeah. He was a monster though. He had his own printing press back then with that business,
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of what I was, and it goes to show you, right? That's how crazy life is sometimes. Maybe there's some truth to God has a plan for you if you just stay the course. But along the way, things didn't really make sense, and it looked like maybe things weren't going to work out. But fortunate enough, the ball bounced right a few times, and I ended up in the right place. And this is kind of this is the best of all worlds for me, because I can trade my own money. I don't have to deal with clients. You know what I mean? If I don't want to take a trade, I don't have to take a trade. And a lot of people don't understand that, again, on the younger side, the luxury of that. They see
Oh yeah.
these huge P&L posts on social media of this guy made 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. If they're even legit, the majority of those posts are probably somebody who's running a book. Back like even me back then, I could easily show that I made $500,000 on a trade, every other day, or lost $500,000, and make people think that was my personal account, but it was client money, right? So it makes me look like this big player. And it almost like steers some of the younger traders the wrong way, where they want to strive to become that monster trader where they think they got to trade this size and trade every day. Every time they fire up the screen, there's got to be an opportunity to make money somewhere. They can't sit still. But I think that the biggest benefit to trading your own account is that you don't have to answer to anybody, right? You don't have to tell anybody what you buy, what you sell if you don't want to. You could sit there for a week straight and not do anything if you don't see an opportunity. I mean, when I was managing a book, if I didn't buy something for clients, they would call me up, get the itch. And if I went a long period of time without buying something, they would ACAT their account out, send it to a broker who's risking their money.
Someone that's going to actively take risk. Like, come on, I need to make 50% this year. That's why I gave you my money. If I wanted
to buy something for a client, I had to tell them why I was buying it, why I think it was going out. Oh, you really think it's going to go higher? No, I mean, I had to answer all these stupid questions. So all that went away. The stress of all that went away. And now, at the same time, with the Steam Room, we're in a place sharing ideas, sharing information, dealing with everybody.
Right. So Twitter is basically moved its way into the Steam Room, in theory, right? Yeah, you're still posting stuff and giving people information, but all like the meat and potatoes and really, really good shit in real time is, sitting in our room. And your community that you kind of started on Twitter has moved its way into the Steam Room for everybody to kind of communicate in one area without having to, tweet at each other. So I kind of want to actually move to that, right? You're done brokerage, you move to the retail trading space, you're Wall Street Jesus on Twitter, then all of a sudden the Steam Room becomes a thing. How the heck does that happen, right?
I think it was Lucci. Yeah, I think it was Lucci. Lucci was on Twitter. Lucci was nuts on Twitter. He would talk about everything, not just the market. He would talk about, social issues, everything, Lucci. But I forgot what happened. But anyway, so he had contacted me, just asked me what I was doing. And what was like exactly kind of what you were asking. What's my goal on Twitter? What am I trying to do? And like he couldn't even understand. I couldn't believe when I told him I have no plan. Like I'm just on here to bullshit, and that's, I met him in Manhattan at the time when he had an office there. We shot it, we shoot the shit. We hit it off. He's just as big as a degenerate as I am, and we all are. And that's it. And that's it, pretty much. But yeah, he followed. I think we followed each other on Twitter for a little bit, and then he reached out to me, and then presented this idea, and I said, yeah, sounds great.
So you guys start communicating, you guys are talking, right? Like you're trying to figure this out. And he's like, I mean, you know how Lucci is. That guy's got more ideas than I've ever heard in my life.
He's nuts.
He's always running, doing like right now, he's just in Mexico, right? And like before that, we were all in Vegas, and now he's going to Miami, and then I think Aruba or something. Like the guy is crazy.
That's another thing too. Like this guy talks in public nonstop. He's at events, or and that's where I'm different. I'm not that educator, that public speaker. So that wasn't really my thing, And
it's so funny when you say that though, because like I said this the day I started at this company, right? And I'd known Charlie for a while at this point. I was like, you gotta get Jay doing more conversations, interviews, podcasts, whatever. I was like, he's built for it. And Charlie's like, I know. I'm like, but does he know? Does he know he's built for this? I was like, the guy does the flow show and he goes, oh, it's going to be a quick one. And then I come back 2.5 hours later and he's still going. But like, it's a machine. Like, I know I'm glazing a little bit, but it's like, I'm honest, like you are good at speaking and like having conversations.
You added control of it.
I got you going.
I'm saying you're crazy. What? Well, it's as simple as, again, if you have a passion for, I used to be like that, still am, but, a little less so as I get older with sports. But, you're passionate about sports, you can talk sports all day long. You never get tired of talking sports.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's how me and my buddies are in our
yeah.
group chats. We're always talking
So
crap
that's
about
how it's
something.
become
So
with the market. And, I think that's kind of my problem. Like when I go on these flow show webinars or anything else, I approach it that way, where I'm talking to just people about the market and what we do for a living, what we do
yeah,
that day. You know, I don't I don't come I don't feel like it feels weird to me to try to pretend I'm an educator or something like that. Don't get me wrong, my experience obviously can come in handy in giving some younger traders advice and stuff like that. But it doesn't come easy for me. Um, the educating part, or especially like what Lucci does, talking up in front of crowds, continuously goes all over. It's like nothing for him now. So that's kind of the anonymity that you were talking about. See how I did? I flowed through that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, you said
You
it.
got
You
to do it
flow. You
quick.
can speak. See what I'm saying? You just proved my point. You just proved my point. You
You
can
can't think
talk.
about it. You just got to go through it quick. But to your point, I you know, I wasn't looking to build, it was never my incentive to build my name up to become that educator or you know what I'm saying, It was
It
kind
was
of I
organic.
wanted to what?
It was organic, Jay. That's honestly the best way to do it, right? As someone that's done marketing for as long as I have, things that are organic tend to be the best, right? Versus, people that are like, you know what, I want to be this thing and I'm going to do this to be this thing. Like, sure, that's great. You have a goal, you want to obtain it. But a lot of the time when someone that wants to be an influencer, will say, or someone that wants to have a community, they come about it in a very inorganic way and just say shit that's going to be, to grab people's attention, right? Similar to what we talked about earlier, people pumping their chest with screenshots of wins, right? Like that's a very inorganic way to grow. But it works for some people, right? For sure. But the best people tend to be the ones that, where it's just an organic growth and you're just talking, sharing ideas. You don't have a predisposition of what you're going to become or what you are. It just happens.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how it went. And I always, especially, I like to keep the private life kind of separate. You know what I mean? I'm not out in the open. Like, listen, people teach their own. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I was never a big fan of like taking pictures of my food and showing it to the world. You know what I mean? Or
Come on,
telling
you want to be
people
an Instagram influencer? You don't want to
yeah,
be a
yeah.
foodie,
Or
Jay?
telling people on Facebook, okay, guys, I'm gonna take a shower and take a shower right now. Just let you guys know. I just, that never did it for me. Um, so you're right though. It's just more of, enjoying the game, enjoying the process, and sharing it with others. And that's kind of how that Wall Street Jesus, because I think that's a question I get asked a lot. Just how is that name is the name that stuck around, right? It's not
Right.
really my own name. I never wanted it. Like people find that, see, you see it a little different. A lot of people that I know ask me, you don't want your own name out there? You don't want people to get to know your name? Like you don't want to build your name? And I really don't. I really don't care, But
Right.
you don't see it that way at all. Like for let's say put it in your shoes. Let's say, like,
Yeah.
would you want your name to be built up, your personal name, or is just some random thing?
Yeah, for me, it wouldn't. I guess it just depends on how it kind of comes up. Like it doesn't really matter. Like if it came to a point where it's like in my best interest to show who I am and have my name attached to something, then yeah, sure, I don't care. For me, I've never been in any of this stuff to be an influencer or anything like that. Like I just like, the whole reason, even though we're doing this, is Charlie's like, yeah, you're a good communicator and talker. Like this would be
Right.
great. I'm like, sure, let's do it. But it kind of, so like taking it a little bit back, it's an interesting question because there's this I came from the video game space. So like obviously I was in trading, for people that don't know who I am, I was in trading for a while, and then that's how I met these guys. And then I went to the video game space and worked in esports and all that. But there was a Minecraft, right? If you know
I
what
know
that is, Jay,
Minecraft. Yeah, of
right?
course.
Minecraft. There's a like YouTuber influencer guy named Dream,
Oh, I
And
know. I've heard of him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
Was it,
dream.
isn't
So
there a smiley face or some shit to that?
he was just like Wall Street Jesus, completely anonymous, and
Yeah,
he's got his little like thing that he puts up and people see, and he made millions off YouTube and all of that without showing anything, and then
yeah,
someone pushed him to actually show, and it actually I don't know what happened ever since. Like a lot of that, I think he's fine, but like he went back to not putting his face in anything.
yeah,
But it was bad. It actually was something that came off negative because people start to build this preconceived notion in their head of what you are, what you look like, or how
yeah,
you are
yeah,
based on
yeah.
how you talk and act. And then if they don't get that after all these years, they go, oh, and it's like almost like as weird as it is to say, it's like almost like a letdown.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
vice
No, it
versa
is.
thing. And
It is.
and who wants that in their life?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so if I'm in that situation where I'm like dreamer, like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, fuck it. What do I care? I'm not attaching
Wow,
my shit
I
to
know who
this.
you're talking about, Dream. Wow, that's interesting. That's interesting. You know, I knew that from my daughter. I actually know that because she used to watch those Minecraft videos. I don't know, other
Yes.
people playing it. Wasn't it like well, I don't want to get it, but didn't he have like his character was just like a plain bland
Yeah, he had a specific thing in the game, and he had like this, like I wouldn't call it a
his
face mask, but
avatar
like
I'm talking
his
about.
avatar was that's what he was, and he just lived
Yeah.
that moniker. Like there's another guy in the crypto space that I've known for a while. He calls himself Swag to Miss Prime, right? Like I know who he is. I've met him in real life. I know his real name. I
Yeah.
know everything about the guy. No one on the outside of Twitter knows, right? They have no freaking clue. And he's like, yeah, I like it that way.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I
you
agree.
don't have to invite the whole, one, judgment, but two, like people are fucking weird, Jay.
Yeah.
People are weird. You don't, if
I,
you put your shit out there, some people might be like, hey, man, this motherfucker, right? You don't know what's gonna happen,
no, no, no.
right? You don't want that in your life. So
Yeah.
so I want to take a step back, right? We just kind of went on a tangent, which is fine. Those usually lead to pretty good conversation. But I originally kind of asked how the steam room became a thing, right? And I know you said you had conversations with Lucci. This was what, like 2016, 2017? I mean, similar to the time that I joined the room for the first time, or do I have that like completely wrong?
Yeah. No, it's close. I think it might be. Well, no, it was 2016. There was definitely a steam room. Might have been 2015 or early 2016. No, it had to be 2015. Had to be right around then. I think. Again, I think. Because I remember 2016 in the steam room. There's the infamous Bazooka Joe moment in the steam room. A big round of sweepers that nailed the 2016 bottom in February. So that I remember in the steam room was a big thing.
I remember that.
A lot of people who were in the steam room at the time remember it, and we talk about it to this day.
Yeah,
so I
the
know
Bazooka Joe. I do remember that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so basically to answer your question, Lucci reached out to me. He told me to come out to Manhattan, came out, I just hung out, talked, I saw the office, talked a little bit about ideas of, how we can do something. And then I think, I don't know, maybe we met a couple more times. I know a couple
And you
of phone
land on this
conversations.
platform idea, like because what I'm trying to put together is like, hey, your background that we just went through, like how you got here, and you're just like, yeah, I like doing my own thing, and I like trading, and then all of a sudden you got Lucci coming, hey, what's up, Mo? Let's do this, right? Like, and you know what in your own mind is like, oh, that's cool, or like because now you're basically turning this into some sort of business, right? And got out of the broker life for again a bunch of things, but you're like, I really just want to trade my money. So what really made you want to do that? And like two, like what did he even pitch you on? Because the steam room in and of itself back then, can't remember too many chat rooms. Like there's some that I kind of remember from back then. But was the idea always that, or was like, no, I look at flow, we want to pipe that into a room?
No, I think. I think Lucci at the time. I think Lucci had a chat room.
Okay.
Already. I don't know how old it was. It wasn't nothing huge, but he had a chat room with some people in it. He would go on the mic. So he had a room already established and everything.
Okay.
So there was that example, but I wasn't really a difficult sell. You could ask Charlie, like, it wasn't really something I thought about, had an idea, but then like when Lucci and the gang presented it to me, I was like,
Sure.
yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And it wasn't anything, again, that I had to do on the technology side, because I would never be able to do it. You know what I mean? If I had to start my own shit on the chat room on my own, I don't even know where to start, you know?
I thought you were going to tell me you were actually a full stack dev, and you know how to code
Yeah,
everything, right?
I'm lucky I can turn the computer on and off these days. That's how bad I am. But so it wasn't really a difficult thing for me to figure out. Like, I really didn't have to put too much thought behind it. It was worth giving it a shot, and from that point, it's been cool.
Yeah, and it's really grown, Jay. I mean, the room has really expanded since then. The tools, the people, and everything that we've done. What I'm going to do is I'll poke at Lucci to get the story. I'm going to do one of these with him, and that'll be one of my big questions for him. Is like, oh, how did this even come to be? Because if he already had the chat room, right, and then he's bringing you in, there's definitely a story to be told on that particular subject. But what I have always been curious about is how in the hell it got named the Steamroom.
Oh no, do you know the answer to that?
No, I have no idea.
When it first started, the flow aspect and how I use it and all, a lot of gambling terminology was entered so people could understand it better, right? So instead of using primarily just option terms, a lot of gambling terminology would replace some of the option terminology. So Steam, if you think about in gambling and handicapping, Earth right now, right? Think of that world, the gambling handicapping world. Steam is when a bunch of money comes in on a particular side, right, on a particular team, and forces the lines makers to adjust the line, right? Steam came in, right? So what we would call Steam, and it's still the best type of action that we get excited about, is when a bunch of sweeper activity would come storming in and start to get a name, pump some momentum into a name, right? So we don't do it as much now, but we would refer to that as Steam when that happened. Oh, did you? Yeah, Apple caught crazy Steam yesterday. It was something, right? And that's where the Steam room came about.
So start as Steam, move down to Flow, the name of the wise guys alerts, right? Like I've always understood like kind of where the terminology
right?
is.
Wise guy alerts, right? Wise guy action in gambling terms, that. So it's, same shit. But that's where Steam Room came in. But the funny thing is I remember this, and maybe I'm wrong, but we didn't have much time. We had to come up with a name for the room pretty quickly. And I remember I was like, we need more time, right? We got to give this some time. We didn't have much time for whatever reason. Charlie may know more about it than I do, but and it was something that just was quick and made sense at the time because it was pretty popular back then. But ever since then, I've come up with better options, but we couldn't change it after that, Steam got stuck.
It just stuck. I mean,
Yeah,
everyone's been talking about it for 10 years at this point. It's like you have some type of brand equity built up in it. Like you can't just ditch the name now. And I honestly like the name. It's just always thought it's funny because when you think of the word Steam Room, like the association that I make with that is not necessarily trading, right?
No. That's what, and it's funny because I never thought of that. And that's a few of the responses early on. I got, whoa, Steam Room.
What are we doing in there, guys? Like, what are we talking about here?
That's funny. That's funny.
So were you one of the first people then to have options flow, in a software, right? To be able to actually see it and analyze it and read it and make decisions off of it?
Oh, yeah, with the options. Again, people, Nigerians had something similar to it, but a little different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like very unusual.
Yeah. This was more of you had the action, the flow, and then you had traders reacting and trading, right? The flow sharing what they felt about the action around us. And Lucci, especially back then, he was on the mic a lot more than he is now. So at the time, like him and me were on the mic and action would come in and Lucci would be talking about, like you hear us sometimes when we're on in the morning together on an active day. So that I think was different and new to a lot of people. But now the Steam Room now it's developed. It's turned into it started with options flow and tape reading and stuff like that. Now it's a lot of other different things. People use that information in a lot of different ways, right? They
Right.
trade futures, they trade names, they trade ETFs, they trade a whole bunch of different things. So yeah, we've, like you said, Charlie and the gang have added things on along the way. But initially it was just, it was pretty much Lucci reading tape and me reading flow. And it started from there.
Yeah, it's a cool story. It really is to see kind of you guys come together and kind of build this room out and have these different tools and have, unfiltered market conversations. And, funny enough, you always, you said before, like, I don't think options are going to become a big thing. And now you look, and you're like, holy shit, this shit is just exploded off the face of the earth, especially with these zero DTE
Yeah.
options, flowing in now. So what I'm curious about is like, has all of this really changed the way that you trade it all?
It has been, honestly, to your point, 100%. It's a lot more saturated now, but for me, my style hasn't changed at all. To answer your question,
Okay.
but I think the more involvement has become beneficial. Now, there's more flow that you have to sift through. There's more noise now because of how much more involvement there is, but at the same time, I think what makes up for that is if you're disciplined enough to wait for the right type of flow, you can find, like, you can scalp off some of the other nonsense. You understand? Like, and that's
Right.
kind of how I approach it. If I see action that is not necessarily the type of action that I want to build a position off of, but I think it's action that can get a lot of the other mopes out there excited because there's so many people looking at it, I'll try to get a scalp out of it. You understand? So
Yeah.
I think that's what makes up for this, how heavily saturated it's become. Because now there's flow all over the place, And I think for some of the newer traders who are trying to get a grasp on the flow, doing it on their own, I think it's a more difficult task now because there's so much of it and it's so spoken about. But once you understand what you need to look for, I think then everything falls in your lap in regards to the discipline, just like anything else in this game. You know what I mean? Any
Right.
edge, no matter what, at least that I've seen around me, you had people are disciplined enough to wait for their fat pitch, basically, right? Wait for the goods. And there's a little more noise as more people get involved, but if you still have the discipline to wait for the better looking stuff out there, you're still going to find an edge and stuff. You're still going to find an edge and stuff. But what's interesting? It's funny you mentioned, because one thing that I really have brought into the mix that I wasn't necessarily using as much was positioning and sentiment, right? Over the years, that the edge that brings into the fold, it took me a while to really not get a grip, but for it to hit me, where how the flow and with sentiment positioning with that backdrop lined up is a deadly combo. That initially that wasn't my approach. That's something that I've added along the way, that I'm happy I did. And you see now, right, to what you just mentioned, it's a big part of what we do. Where initially, when I first got into the steam room, wasn't as big.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I mean, back then the focus was always just flow,
Flow, right?
right? And it was much easier. At least is for me. I'm by no means a pro in this game, right? Not even close. But at least back then, I always found the flow to be a lot easier to follow. Now it's like,
Yeah, there was less.
I second guess a lot of different things, and I'm looking at different pieces of the picture, right? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, well, they got like we saw today with like the weed stock, the MOS OS, right? Like, it's just because there was a guy that's going to be the attorney general is going to be, whoever it is. And I'm just like, people are just hitting the board, wrapping up calls. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's just not.
That's a great point you make, because that's all algo machine trading. Like,
Right.
now they have algos that keyword, any little keyword that algo could pick up, boom, it's firing off sweeps in that name, you know?
Right.
So if there's the word weed mentioned in some news line that just came across, you're no doubt you're going to see some sweeper activity. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what this game has become, to your point. So, but again, I think if you're looking for that type of stuff, right, that type of action is scalp type action. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, you could get lucky and you happen to get in one, like these algos we see, they fire off and then they catch a halt and they catch the news, you know, but it's not stuff you really want to build a position, carry overnight risk in,
Right.
you know,
Right.
the stuff you want to really risk your money behind is that institutional accumulation. You know, that type of buying, aggressive with size that keeps coming. You know, it's not just a hit and run type sweep, as we say, right? They keep coming around, almost forcing you to take notice and take an interest. You know, so I think that's the difference. It takes time. Don't get me wrong. It takes time. You need to pay attention enough to get a grasp on these things. But I think once you are able to realize the difference in the action, it starts making a lot more sense. But to your point is, with so much flow out there, if you're just getting involved just on a whim because you're just looking at flow of a scanner, your head will spin, right? Because you can't tell the difference between these sweeps and that sweep. Again, I think that's a good thing though for us, in the steam room. I think that's a good thing because, like, to your point, there's so many things out there. You don't need to pay for flow anymore. Let's be honest, right? You can get a scanner for free off any of these Ameritrade sites these days that spit out size call buys or put buys. I think you need somebody to sift through the mess if you
100%.
want to find an edge in it. I don't think there's any way around that. There's no way that can be automated, in my opinion. There's no way.
No. And it's like you said, people cherry pick, what they are. It's actually one of the allures for me when I was, when I kind of came back into trading. Like, I've tried, I've always kind of been around and different stuff. Like, I've taken all the courses, all that shit, right? I've been around long enough to kind of see this transition, inside of one, the steamer, but two, within options flow. And I remember I've tried a lot of other services just out of curiosity, be like, okay, well, if I go to this place or that place and I can see all of it, like, wow, I can do this. Like, I can really see some edge. And then I go in there and I'm like, holy hell, like, you don't, it's just too much. It's so much. Like, if I were to not put a single filter on it, right, and just let it go, I mean, there's like 50 orders a second. Like, you can't.
That's kind of what I'm looking at on a day-to-day. That's what I'm looking at exactly every day. Like, that's what I'm looking at. And for somebody who, is just trying to learn that shit and has to sift through all that, it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And put it this way, if I really had the confidence in somebody doing it for me, I would have somebody do it for me. I'm not going to lie. If I had, I'm being dead straight with you. If I really had the confidence that somebody can do what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, cutting through all the fat, basically what I'm doing, I would rather have that. I would rather have that and just, glance at the flow when I want to see it. But I know we've gave it a lot of thought, like Norse, the whole gang. How can we automate it? Right? We try like these momentum scans that we've come up with, where it resembles it a little bit, but never gets to the place we want it to, because the human element, you can't replace that human element. There's just no way to do it. There's no way to do it. I mean, simply this, just to explain it simply, I don't want to get into every detail of it, but
no, this is interesting, Jay. I love this. Keep going.
Like you mentioned, some of the other outfits out there that just spit out all these orders, okay? But all those orders mean nothing unless I can look at the rest of the order flow that's in that name at that time. You understand? If $1 million call buyer comes into Amazon, that's great. Okay, I can do cartwheels till I turn blue in the face. That $1 million call buyer in Amazon. If I don't know whether he's closing anything else, right, or maybe he's buying 3 million in puts early in the day or
Right.
anything else he could be doing that day. If I have no knowledge of that information, that $1 million order does me zero good. There's zero edge of that information. Zero. Okay. So right there, that's a problem for me. Like you could tell me there's a $10 million call buyer. And if I don't have access, the ability to pull up the rest of the action and look through the rest of the action, or not even that, know what took place in the action in some of the days prior, I have zero conviction in doing anything with that order. And listen, nothing in life, let alone in the market, right? Are you going to just accidentally find an edge and it's going to be easy where you don't have to do anything? That's just, it's too good to be true. It doesn't exist. Right?
Yeah.
If you want any sort of edge in this game, it's got to be something that you have to put the work in. There's got to be some work involved. And sitting there for a scanner to spit out size orders, anybody can do that. If that was an edge, everybody be a billionaire at this point.
Yeah, we'd all be rich.
Yeah.
Every $1 million sweeper there was, perfect. I'm just going to buy
this. Follow $1 million sweep. I would love that, but again, we would have hyperinflation if that ever happened. So.
Yeah, everybody be billionaires at this point with something like that. See that? So that's a cool. I mean, it's this journey that you kind of been on through all this time, right? Like from broker, no options, then you're going into it. And it's like, yeah, now options are kind of a thing. I'm going to talk about it. Then you build the room, and then now as things evolve, you're like, yeah, flow's great, but I need to see now this, and this. Like, do you ever think it's going to get to a point where not necessarily like options flow is meaningless, right? I don't think that'll be the case. But do you ever think you get to a point where you're just like, shit has evolved so much that I'm just now I'm the one that's lost, right? Like, do you ever think the game will get to that point? Because I remember at one point, do you remember like the flash crash that happened, right? With the algos and all this other shit? Like, at one point someone was telling me, they're like, oh, it's all going to be algos driven. I'm like, well, it kind of already is. I was like, but that doesn't mean that a retail person can't trade and make it off if you know how it is. But do you ever think we're going to get to a point where it's just like, holy shit, like this is not the same anymore. I'm getting out.
You never could say never about anything in this game. But I don't see it. I don't see it. I think you will always have, again, there will always, if there's an obvious edge, that goes away because everybody realizes.
Yeah, once everyone realizes it.
You know what I mean? The market washes that out. But stuff that you have to put the work in, like reading tape, like kind of what Lucci and Montero like to do, where you need to learn something. You need to figure out a way to cut through some of the fat, some of the noise to find that edge where discipline still is a very important factor. Having the patience and stuff like that. I don't think that ever will go away. I don't think that will ever go away. There will always, I think, be some sort of edge there, but you never know. I mean, at the rate, I'll tell you what's the biggest difference from back then to now is the speed of shit. Back then, I remember if good looking action used to come into a name I had an interest in, I could piece into that name nice and easy. I'd buy a little today, wait for a little bit of a dip, add a little bit more. Now, if it's something that excites you and you think the street could get excited about, you have no time to blink. You got to buy it right there and then. Otherwise, they price it in. These things go parabolic. You see some of these things. Some of these stocks, you have literally that moment to find an entry in it. Otherwise, you're chasing $5, $6, $10 on the stock if you want in. And that I think is the biggest pain in the ass, the speed of it all. Another thing too with market pullbacks and recoveries. And back when I got into the game, you'd have a nice healthy correction. And then if you were sitting in cash and were looking at the right things, flow, sentiment, positioning, you could start piecing in, right? Into the lows. You didn't have to go in all one shot. Now, these days, you get these V-shaped snapback rips where literally the correction takes 2 months to develop and the market rips back in a week, So if you miss that opportunity, it's kind of, you're done. But that's just the speed of the game now. I think, more people have more access to more information and all the machines and everything else.
Yeah, you're fighting algos, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point you made that I kind of wanted to hit on is like back then versus now, right? Like, I asked if, you think it's going to get to a point where you can't do it. You're like, no, I don't think so. But you mentioned the speed of which, things kind of moved. Do you find it now that it's actually more difficult, like to trade than it was back then? I mean, because if you think about it, the speed is there. I mean, you have the potential to make more money. We move so fast and in one direction a lot of the time, right? With whatever it is, the algos, or if you want to get into the whole gamma conversation, but things move pretty quickly. Back then it was much slower pace. Like I love going and pulling up a chart, right? Like of just the S&P 500, and then you like segment it in like 2 years, and you go, holy crap! The ride that we've been on, since COVID, basically, is just it's nuts. So do you find that this environment's like easier because you can make more money in a faster amount of time? Or you find it more difficult because
I find it more of a for me, like it depends on the trader, but for me, it's a bigger pain in the ass. I find it much more annoying. I like slow. I like slow. I like stuff that I have control over. I can have a handle on, for my style. Because just quickly, like a little bit about my style, I like to buy stuff that's dead, that doesn't have a heartbeat. And the sweeper activity, the flow is cueing me about the possible uptick in activity and momentum that's going to come into the name. You understand? I don't want momentum already in the name and then good looking action to come in. You understand? I want it to be a dead heartbeat if I could draw it up my way. And I'm the only one looking at the name. And then sweepers come in. I got time to get in position. I can manage my risk, right? I can figure out things. I have more control over it. When things are moving fast, you're chasing. You don't get filled, right? Sometimes, and once you start chasing, now where are you putting your stop loss? You got to stay looser now because you're chasing, and you got to give it a little bit of room because of a pullback. So that's where it's a big pain in the ass for me. I'm always doing my best when things are quiet and then come to life. I'm already in it when it comes to life. Not it's already hot and I'm getting in it. That type of thing. So this
and how do you find that?
What?
How do you find it, right? Like, and it's just for people that like, maybe haven't heard you say this on the flow show, or like all this going into like your style of trading. Like, this whole thing is about Wall Street Jesus, like who you are and like how you trade. So, with your style, like how do you find those names? Like obviously back in the day, stuff was a lot slower, like you said, and you could pick your spots in this. But nowadays, with the speed, like we've been talking about, how do you find something that is like DOA, and you're like, all right, this might get a revival. Like you're talking about sentiment, you're talking about options flow, but you want to be in it before that shit hits, then you can ride the entire rocket ship and manage. So like, how do you find those?
Generally, what I'm saying is, you see, like NVIDIA, right now, NVIDIA, let's say, where NVIDIA, there's more more options activity in NVIDIA than the ETFs, than the S&P 500. That's how crazy it is. Everybody and their mother's talking about NVIDIA. Your mother's aunts, grandma, sisters talking about NVIDIA. CNBC's talking about. I want nothing to do with that. NVIDIA is the last thing that I want to build a position in right now. Okay, because of that fact. You have so many different hands in. You have so much. Think about how much more competition you have in that name. How much more is going on in that name, right? So I feel like the flow in NVIDIA, there's very little, if any, edge out of the flow in NVIDIA when it's like that. Okay, and it's not the name NVIDIA. It's what's going on in NVIDIA right now. There was a time in NVIDIA where NVIDIA stock wasn't doing anything for a 6-month period, right? But when it's in consolidation for 6 months or a year, not doing anything, nobody's paying attention to it, and now all of a sudden you get a day where whoop, $1 million sweeps come whistling in. That's what I want to be in. You see the difference there? I want to be in a video that's trading a sweeper every 30 seconds, and everybody's looking for an edge in it. I want to be in a video when it's been hibernating for a lengthy period of time, and now the big boys are starting to get in. You understand? That's where I feel I can be early. Here, I have no clue. Again, it's not a bearish call. I don't know if NVIDIA is going to go up, down. I have zero conviction. all I have conviction in regarding NVIDIA is I have zero edge. And anybody out there, right, especially social media, all these Joe Schmoes out there that claim they have an edge, right? Think about how many different players are involved in NVIDIA right now, and you're going to claim you have an edge in NVIDIA, right? The majority of the news in NVIDIA, anything bullish in NVIDIA that you're going to tell me, likely everybody knows already. It's already out there. You're not telling anybody anything new.
Yeah, it's nothing new in it.
No, right? But again, if NVIDIA was in hibernation for a year, right, went through a little bit of a tough time, people, all of a sudden, traders are putting in, I'll give you an example, Tesla, okay? Tesla, rewind, a year ago, let's say when it went parabolic, it was like NVIDIA now. Tons of options activity, going nuts, went nuts. Then more recently, Tesla couldn't get out of its own way for a good 6 months, right? You started seeing traders put, oh, this is on my do not touch list. It's chop, it's this, it's that, right? And then now look at where Tesla is now. All of a sudden, everybody wants it again. It's that period in time where nobody wants it and nobody's paying attention. That's where the stuff we're looking for out of the flow provides an edge. You understand? Because the sweeper activity is telling us it's time to wake up. Okay? Momentum's coming. Right? That's
right. And that's also like why you also, I think you said you prefer equities too. Is like there's no time decay. You're not picking options right. But you're getting into it to say, okay, yeah, I mean, for you, it could be like a 6-month swing. Like you don't know per se when it's going to go. You're like, this is a dead name. I have an idea that we could go in this direction, right? I'm getting in now.
And depending on the action, right? Depending on the action. But even the options, Joe, you like, I mean, look at like Ranchero, right? He'll go out and buy leaps, high delta leaps. You could, what? See the smarter money and the professional money, right? The larger money at play. When they come in to buy options, they're not buying out of the money options for 10 cents, where they, what I mean, lotto tickets. When they have conviction, they're going high delta at the money, close to the money. They're treating the option like an equity. You understand? They treat it the same way. That's where that's how institutions will play the option game. So, it's kind of where we look for the same stuff. We're on that same page. But going back to your point, I that's the most important thing. Like, I like quiet. I like peace and quiet. I like a dead heartbeat, and then sweepers are my cue that there's going to be some excitement possibly that comes into the name. So to answer your question that you asked me before, that's the one, I think, problem about this day and age in this market is that it's so fast and so noisy that you really got to wait for that opportunity, that quiet opportunity, because shit's so noisy out there,
Right. And again, like you said, that's like the way that you trade. That's how you look at the markets. Like, I've heard you say it before, but like, yeah, I'm taking a trade in 3 weeks, right? Like, I'm not just blindly slinging 0 DTE SPX calls and puts, to grab a candle. It's just not your style. And there's other people that, that's their style. They're degenerates and just gambling away.
I never heard. This first time I heard it was since I've been in the Steamroom. Okay, I get trolled for not trading for a few days, a week. Like, that used to be, I give you an example. The people I actually traded around before I got into the Steamroom, they would be like, good shit, bro. That's what you got to do. Good shit. Way to have discipline. On the Steamroom over when we were broadcasting on Twitter, social media and YouTube, whatever.
I remember that.
I got people trolling me. Oh, you didn't trade again. This guy's a piker. He's paper trading. Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? What, I got to trade every day to impress you? I got to lose my money to impress you? You know what I mean?
That's what the people want, Jay. Show me that P&L, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's why, and to your point earlier, you hit on this, and you're so right. Regarding the point, like, you don't want your stuff out there. Sometimes you just don't want people.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer. Like, there are people out there that are going to root against you no matter what. You see it. Yep. Like, I remember when, like, Lucci would have those bad down days, and he would show them up, because Lucci, one thing he always does, he'll show you the winners, he'll show you the losers. He's not hiding anything, But it was always the losers. Like, when he showed you those down days, you could see people are happy to see it. You could see people enjoy to see it out there. Not everybody, but a good amount of people. There are people rooting against you. And when you're
preying on your downfall.
Yeah. When you're superstitious like I am, this goes back to even betting the ball game days. Like certain people, I never wanted to let them know what I had, what side I was on. You know what I mean? I don't need the pat on the back from anybody. When I win, I want to win quietly. When I lose, I want to lose quietly. It's my money. That's it. You shouldn't be paying attention to what I'm doing anyway. Even in the steam room, you should be paying attention to the information I'm sharing about that name, not how I'm trading it. You know what I mean? So, but when you're a superstitious person, you could see how, that could be a big, big problem. Just letting the world know what you're in.
Yeah, you start telling people, oh, I'm in this and that, and it goes
Here's
against
the
you.
thing,
You're like,
okay?
oh
And
shit.
I've done it a few times, and it's always a problem. It never works out. But if I was to come out and be like, oh man, I got this massive position in XYZ, this thing's gonna go. I'm telling you, I'm so excited about this stock. And I start talking that way in the steam room and on the flow show and stuff like that, going out of my way, letting everybody know the type of size I have in this name, right? Having everybody now know, people cheering against me, rooting against me. Every time looking at that stock, when they see it down, they're happy. Oh yeah, Jay, he's got a big position and he's probably getting killed. That stock has no shot of working out. If no shot of working out when you do that, no shot. You see it all the time, no shot. When people are, well, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they go out of their way to let people know about the size and how excited the
As
conviction
people
are.
like to be loud, they want to build their name, right? Like they're almost on
Exactly.
the opposite side of you. And you get, that's why I said before, I was like, when you do it organically, it tends to be, a lot more genuine and better versus people that want to come in. Cause in the gaming space, I can't tell you how many people want to just come in and stream video games all day and, this is what
Right.
I want to do. And they're pumping their chest. And I'm like, okay, like I get that's what you have to do if you want to be an influencer. You got to be loud, you got to be brash. In the trading game, what I've kind of found is, and there are people, I have to caveat this a little bit, is there are people though that are kind of being, I wouldn't say loud, but are sharing those things as a way to like either give perspective because people are interested in what they have to say, or they're doing it to have different ideas. Hey, I'm looking at this because of this, right? It's still a community that's sharing information, but
Yeah.
they're not out on Twitter posting like, hey, I just had a $1.7 million
Yeah.
trade. I'm pumping my
Yeah.
chest, right? It's a
Yeah.
different
Exactly.
kind of way to do it versus what you're suggesting
Yeah.
is like people that are out there like pounding their chest, taking screenshots of whatever it is, just because they want people to look at them and be like, wow, look at that guy.
Right.
It's
Right.
like
Right.
the
Right.
kids
Right.
that they have the Rolls Royce steering wheel, right? And they got
Yeah.
fucking hundreds stacked
I call
across,
them,
and I'm just
I
like,
call them the Ferrari steering wheel avatars. They always got a Ferrari steering wheel as an avatar on Twitter, right? Always.
it's
But
crazy how many there are, and
yeah.
they have this whole thing, and my whole thing too is every time I look at it, I go, I know you're full of shit, right?
Yeah.
Because
And listen, the market gods will take care of them. You know what I mean? It's only a matter of time. They'll take care of them. They'll chew them up and spit them out. Sometimes they let them get away with it to feel, like a big shot for a little bit longer than they should. But the markets don't go for that shit. But that's something. Being in this game long enough, you look to avoid. You know what I mean? You look to avoid. I don't know how you can be in this game and not be superstitious. So, but that's just me. That's just me.
right, right. Yeah, and that's fine. Like that, like you say it all the time. Like Lucci, you and Ranch all trade in different ways. Like that's what kind of makes the allure of the steam room so cool to me. Is like you have all these different perspectives. Like you're the machine of, I'm going to take a trade when I know that this is what could happen, and you have a higher conviction of it. And Ranch is looking at technicals and spots like that of like,
Yeah,
hey, this
yeah,
is in a,
yeah.
I'm not
Everybody
buying
adds
this in
their own
a
little
trend,
wrinkle.
right?
Yeah,
Right. And Lucci's watching tape, then you got guys like, Silvers that are, playing moving averages on, for scalps that are 10, 20, 30 seconds. That's what always makes this kind of cool is like, the difference of opinions and all of it. But at the end of the day, all the information that's being shared can be used in a way that works, like for your trading style, like in different pieces of it. So what I wanted to ask you is this then, because I know that this is not your purview at all, based on how you trade. But something that has really changed, at least in my eyes, in the game itself, is when they started introducing zero DTE,
yeah.
options, right? Like that's a whole nother thing. And there's always this debate, and I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but there's always this debate on Twitter or whatever about how much it really is impacted the game itself of trading. So I'm curious what your perspective is on that. Like, how much has changed since zero DTs have come into the picture, or if you're just like, nah, it's just another vehicle for me to trade, and if someone is
Yeah,
going to
I
do it,
mean, I don't trade them. I don't trade weeklies either, so I don't trade any of that stuff. But a lot of people make the argument that they can even add stability into the game. They're like, it's almost another form of um, trading the VIX for protection and insurance. People can put on protection and hedges every single day. One thing I learned is the game is going to evolve, and you got to evolve with it. Sometimes it'll affect things you do a little bit, and you got to adjust. But nothing's going to stay static. It's not going to stay the same no matter what. There's always going to be, like, think about back in the day. I remember they were equity wise, we were trading fractions. You know what I mean? We was trading fractions. You don't even remember that, do you? Fractions on the equity. I remember, like, you buy XYZ 33 and a quarter, or 33 and 3/8, 33 and a half. And then they went to decimals and shit like that. So, as time goes on and as we all get older, I can't take it anymore. We get older, the weeks go by like crazy these days. But as we get older, things are going to change and you got to adjust. But I think people who spend too much time on worrying about how it can be a problem, people like that are not going to. They're always not going. They're going to have trouble finding success, because it's just
right?
nothing's going to stay status quo in anything.
Right.
This game
It's just another
continues.
vehicle. Just another vehicle to trade is. I mean, the way I look at a lot of this stuff too is like similar to you said. It's just like either it's another vehicle to trade, or it's another piece to the puzzle for me. And if something really,
sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not. Like, I give you an example. Nvidia or even Tesla, when I'm day trading and I'm day trading the equity, names like that, I would never, I'm not going to trade $1,000 stock intraday equity wise. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't pay. So now they got these levered Tesla ETFs or whatever they are, TSLL and NVDL. Now once in a blue moon, I'll trade those names if the flow is aggressive enough where I wouldn't trade. So sometimes, the way the game evolves, it ends up beneficial, and sometimes it don't. There's no reason to go nuts over it.
Yeah, it's always funny because it's like, everyone is on Twitter or something like that. It's all noise, right? People are always talking about it. I always find it funny when you get like a bigger, what I'll call a bigger fish inside of the game itself, right? Like someone that's on there and talks about the markets all day, has a large following. I'm not talking like, of someone that is, a BS, what I call a BS trader, where they're just pumping, a service and you can't verify anything that they do, right? I'm talking like people that I would consider big fishes. And, they have all these conversations about, like, oh, zero T's breaking this, or no, gamma, this, that. Like, it's interesting to hear your perspective where you're just like, yeah, I don't fucking care. It doesn't,
I can't
really matter. Like, I know what it is. I understand it. It's another vehicle. It's another piece of information. But like, to sit here and try to worry about how it's breaking or changing everything, if it matters that much, then maybe you're just not the best, at trading, if that type of stuff really destroys, your trading or your strategy or whatever your plan is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if it really affects what you're doing, then you got a problem, and you're going to have to figure out another route. But I think a lot of, especially newer traders in this game, they want to be the smartest guy in the room. They want to be the smartest guy out there. They want, you see them when they talk about these things like gamma and zero DTE. They want to sound intelligent, but the truth of the matter in this game, no matter, intelligence doesn't make you money in this game.
Right.
Always people smarter than you in this game. Think of the smartest minds in the world get it wrong all the time.
Can't beat the S&P. That's always the funniest part. You got hedge funds that can't beat the S&P.
I mean, we came into 2022 with the Fed hiking rates at a clip we've never seen before in our lives. The top guys on the street were all screaming recession, every single one of them. And to this day, we still haven't had a recession. You know what I mean? So this game is not about how smart you are, how much information you have. It's about zoning in, trying to find an edge, and then just pounding the table on that edge. You know what I mean? The ability to focus and zone in and stick around and have the discipline to just wait for your edge and be able to pound it each and every time it shows up. I don't know anybody else in gambling, and like you said, this is gambling, who's found success, any sort of success, doing anything different. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just people I've not hung around in my life, but anybody I know, especially in this game, that's still in this game, that may not be the same edge that you and I have, but that's exactly what they do. That's exactly what they do. They wait for their fat pitch, they pound their fat pitch, and then everything else is just having the discipline to wait around for another decent opportunity, managing your bankroll appropriately along the way. I think that's the more important thing for us as players in this game to focus on, because no matter how much information you're looking at, you study, you're never going to be smarter than everybody else in this game. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. That makes total sense. It makes total sense. And it's actually why, I know a lot of people now are starting, because you have access to it, right? Like retail trading has really kind of taken off over the last, there's just so much data to this point that it is wildly overwhelming. And a lot of people kind of miss the bare bones of the markets themselves and how they all work. Yeah, there's always a new tool, there's always a new whistle, there's always something else people are looking at. But in the grand scheme of things, right, it hasn't changed as much as you think. The speed and pace, as you made notice of, it has really kind of evolved over time and things move a lot quicker. But it's kind of like when people are in the room, there's like, bear market, we're never going to have one of those again, right? It's so difficult to time and figure out when it's going to happen.
That's one thing that'll never change in this game is, the crowd, they may be right for longer than you think, but the crowd usually ends up wrong and buried all the time in this game. And it's just the way the market works. You know what I mean? It's just any market. It's buying and selling. And I think people need to focus more on that than all the other stuff that they cloud their brains with. The best opportunities usually are going to come in things that not everybody is involved in at the time. You know what I mean? And things that everybody is talking about and everybody wants to know about and everybody is involved in, that's where you need to be a lot more nimble and quicker, because it's usually closer to the end of that good time than the beginning. Right. And that's pretty bland, like a pretty vague statement, but that's the market in a nutshell, basically. When everybody is already long, there's not much buying left. There's not much more buying left to do, right? Anything bad that comes around, there's going to be a lot of selling, a lot of supply to come to the market. And when everybody has already sold and everybody's bearish, anything positive that shows up is going to create a lot of short covering or a lot of buying and a huge turnaround. And when you take a step back, I think that's the most important way you have to look at the markets, big picture wise, because that'll never change.
Right. No, that's great, Jay. I really appreciate you giving me your perspective on all this. I mean, I've heard, over the years, like through all the conversations, like I kind of know where you land and how your style is. But for some people that haven't been around or just hearing this for the first time or have seen your name and never, or now are like, holy shit, I get to hear like this guy's story. Like, it's interesting to hear that part because, you're a person that just gives a lot of data, right? Like you're giving a lot of data out across the board and you have conversations about the markets, but you're not a person out there pumping your chest, right? Like that's just not your style. So for a lot of people, they're like, well, shit, I really don't know what he does or how he looks at the markets, outside of what he says. I don't know how he even trades, right? So it's cool to get that perspective so everyone can kind of understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like where
and just some people, work. And that it's great. You're 100% right. Because I definitely don't do a better job of introducing people to that, even on webinars that we do, the flow show and stuff like that. But to put it in the simplest of terms, like what we do in the steam room, I feel like my job, like remember I was talking about, like if I could have somebody to cut through the fat and the noise for me, I would love that. Like I feel like that's my job, no matter whether I'm buying that stock or not. I think is irrelevant because for whatever reason, I may make the wrong decision and not buy it, and you should have bought it, right? So I think that's the least important thing that's involved in what we do in the steam room. My job is, I feel, is to cut through all the fat and bring to steam room members the best of the options order flow on a daily basis. You understand? The cut through, like you said, when you first got it, like we're looking at options order flow, so all these orders, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do with all this shit, right? Like I feel like my job is to say, all right, I'm not spending any time on this for a reason. This is the stuff I'm looking at. This is the stuff I feel that's worth looking at. And you make your decisions from there. And I think right there, if you start with that attitude, you start like looking at the flow through those lenses, I think you get from A to Z a lot quicker than you would trying to do it on your own and trade at the same time, right? Especially without having knowledge. But that's what I feel like my job is in the steam room every day, is if there is legitimate action, right, that I feel is noteworthy, I need to make sure my job is to make sure that you know about it, right? Whether you buy it, where you sell it, it's up to you. It's your money. I don't know what type of account you're dealing with. I don't know your risk tolerance. I don't know anything regarding that. But my job is to isolate that action and bring it to your attention. And there are things, no matter what, that you need to do in order to find success over the long term that nobody can do for you. You can't mimic somebody else's trades. That it never works. That'll never work. No matter what, you're going to have to find the ability and the discipline to do what you need to do to find success. But if you have someone cutting through the fat of the flow and isolating those noteworthy situations, I think you have a higher probability of finding success than you would otherwise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And you're not the one that has to sit there and learn it. Like trading's hard enough as is, right? Taking the information, figuring out, I mean, especially the psychology of all of it. Like the psychology is brutal.
Yep.
That people don't give enough credit for. So be able to sit there and be like, yeah, I know, we've already cut through the fat for you. Like, hey, like it makes your job a lot easier. And I mean, trading's not hard, like I've said. So, or not easy, I should say. It's fucking hard. Yeah, it's fucking difficult. So on that though, you made a comment. You said if someone could ever cut through the fat for you, right? Like that's what you'd want. Do you think anyone would ever be able to do that? Like a lot of this is knowledge that you've built up over time, right? And you have a specific way that you look at the flow and all that. Someone else might be different. Like, do you think that at any point in time someone would actually be able to do that part?
Again, the way I want it to be done, probably not, and that's why I'm still doing it. That's why I still look at literally the flow every single day. Like if I go away for a couple days and I miss the order flow for a couple days, I come back lost. I swear to God, just a couple days. If I'm on like vacation, I feel like I missed a year worth of the market, because I'm so used to it. So it's not to say nobody can do what I do. There are definitely a lot of players out there who read flow as long as I have and probably know more about the options world than I do. It's just specifically what I look for and what I want to see. It's difficult to teach that to a T, right? They can do it somewhat, but it's really a difficult thing because there's a lot of feel involved too. There's a lot of feel. It's tough to sit down with someone and teach them the exact way you want it to be done.
Yeah. A lot of it's instinct over time, right? Like a lot of this is instinct too. When you look at it, you've looked at it for so long. Like obviously there's a bunch of other factors, but it's like, it's why everyone always asks questions. Like, today was a good example. There's like a big, Microsoft sleeper. And I have a position in that I've had in since post earnings, right? Longer term, like leap. I'm like, well, is that rolling? Like,
Right.
Let me know, right? And then you're like, yeah, let me take a look. Like, I think it's this. Like, that's super valuable, information for me or someone else. Yeah. And you might have someone else because I've seen it in the room too, where people are just like, oh, it says this, so it's this. I'm like, it's not necessarily what it means. Like, there's a larger story. You're just getting one part of it. So you need to kind of dive a little bit deeper.
You have people who, even if you tell them it's something, they don't want to believe it because they have a bias. And you know what I mean? So I tell them like the Microsoft example or earnings flow, which I'm not a big fan of names going into earnings. You want me to make it sound bullish for you? You want me to make it sound bearish? I could do both for you. If that's what you want me to do, I could do that. You know?
You've said that to me before. It's so funny you say that because I remember asking you about QQQ sweeps one time,
Right.
and you're like, "Well, what case do you want?" I go, well, "What do you mean? You're like, you want bullish? You want bearish? You want neutral? Like, give me what you want. I'll tell you what you want to hear if it's going to help you make a
It's
decision."
so
And I
true.
just laughed. I'm like, "So basically, you're telling me this shit's junk," and you're like, "Not that it's junk. It's just that you're not going to get a clear picture of what's actually happening from
There's
this
no edge.
thing in
There's no
particular.
edge in that
No edge for
information.
that,
There's no
right?
edge. And just a quick point so that people understand what you're referring to, Microsoft. Right
Yeah,
now, this week is November OPEX week. Okay. If you pull
yeah,
up the open interest in Microsoft, you will see the top OI positions that are sitting in open interest this coming into this week, a ton of November call positions. Okay. They all go poof by Friday. They all are set to expire by Friday. Okay.
right.
So now you see this huge size coming into names like Microsoft call activity this week, specifically this week. Is it a coincidence that you're seeing all this size when all these November positions are set to expire? How do I know whether these positions that are in open interest, somebody's just not replacing those? How do I know maybe somebody is replacing a small piece of that and that's not even that bullish? You understand? So without knowing the player personally, individually, you don't have access to that information. So why pretend you do? You treat it as nothing, neutral. It's a waste of time. There's no edge in the information. Once we get through OPEX, if you see action like that from that point on, then you have something there. If not, it all likely was just November replacement. That's all it was. You know?
Right.
So
And that's
that's
the context, right? I guess
exactly.
the context that makes this so important. And people that are in the steam room obviously know a lot of this, right? Because they've been with us. But for people that are, kind of discovering this and like basically meeting you for the first time, like that's good information, right? Like that's what they need to hear and understand to like get a grasp of kind of like what we do, but really just like understand how your mind works. Is just to be frank, like you're the person when you're not there, Jay, people freak out. Like, I'll be honest. Like, if you don't hear you're typing, a dog, a door shut, some
Yeah,
type of
just used to it.
ambient noise coming from that stream, people are like,
Sometimes,
where's Jay?
sometimes
Where's
snoring
Jay?
I hear too.
Yeah, snoring. Yeah. I mean, you just fall asleep at your desk all the time. So
Yeah,
what can
yeah.
I say?
That's fake news,
Um,
by the way, for everybody. It's putting rumors on me. But yeah, they get used to, it's like the sounds of the ball game when you go to a baseball game, the crack of the bat, those type of things you get used to trading every day. I think that's what everybody gets used to. But yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
yeah, I love it. So what's next, right, Jay? Like, what's next for Wall Street Jesus? Like in your mind, I
I
know that's a
don't need.
loaded question, and you don't think that far in advance, but is it just you're like, yeah, I love the game, and I'm gonna keep grinding away, and
I
whatever comes
just
my way comes
all
my
I
way.
know is I'm getting older by the day. I'm past my prime, which sucks. So for anybody who's young out there and down and out and depressed and miserable over money or some stupid bullshit, you need to wake up right now because life goes by you like this. And before you know it, you're an old man. But no, all kidding aside, like I I don't know. I really don't put too much thought into it. I go day by day and do what I got to do. I still enjoy everything I'm doing. I think that's the most important thing. If you ever get to a point where you're not enjoying what you do every day, I think that's when the problems present themselves. But right now, that's not an issue for me. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing and have fun doing it.
Well, everyone appreciates it. I know I do, and you can always tell that people really do appreciate it. And it's so funny that when throughout this entire thing, you're just like, yeah, the expectation was to never. I refer in marketing terms to everybody like really in the company as like talent, right? Like you're
Right.
talent to me, right? Again, yeah, you're a trader. You might not consider yourself an educator, but you are pretty good at educating. Different things, different names. But for me, I'm like, y'all are talent, and you're like someone who that was never the intention. It just kind of expanded that way and it became organic, which is I think the allure for a lot of people too. That when they see it, are like, yeah, this guy's going to give me a no bullshit approach because he doesn't have an agenda, right? And
Yeah.
everybody out there right now has an agenda, right? Like you could, if you wanted to, you could fuck off right now, go do your own thing, and it wouldn't matter. It would suck for everybody else, but for you, right? Like it's just another day in the office trading, doing what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. So I appreciate you taking the time, Jay, to kind of share your
No, this
story.
was
I'm
awesome. I
sure.
enjoyed doing it. And like I
Yeah.
said, anytime, anytime talking shop, I enjoy it every time we do it. So
I think we might have to make you a reoccurring, segment while we're on this at some point. We'll have to
hell
figure out what
yeah.
that looks like. But I enjoyed the conversation and I appreciate you taking the time as always. This is the only way that I wanted to do the first episode is with you,
I
and kind
appreciate
of
it,
hearing your
Joe.
story in the market. So, thanks for the time, Jay. And for all those that are listening to the first episode, please, like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. It's the first one. This is going to expand and get better over time. We're going to bring in Ranchero and Lucci so you guys can get to know them a little bit more and then start talking to other people on the outside and just have candid conversations, interviews, talking about the market, see what's going on. It's really a, no holds barred approach to whatever we want. Like that's
Yeah.
what the purpose of this was for me is it could just be Jay and me one day talking shop with Ranch and I could just be
Yeah.
sitting here
Yeah.
drinking a beer, letting you two guys go at it about market dynamics and shit. Like that's the fun of all of this is it's just us being us. And that's what I think is the cool part of all of this. So, thank you guys for listening and we'll see you on the next one.
Later, everybody.